My name's Ruth and I'm a compulsive overeater. Really lovely to be here with you. And yeah, what a wonderful meeting. What a superbly organized meeting. I normally meditate at this time in my house with my housemates, so I've not been before, but yeah, it's really nice to know this is here. And I'll try not to look at how many people are here because it's probably a little bit overwhelming. But yeah, it's also great that there's so many people here hearing the message and wanting recovery. So yeah, I first came and found the rooms in another fellowship in Coda about 11 years ago, 2014. And I first came to OA in 2018. I live in London, in East London. Yeah, and I didn't find abstinence straight away, so I wanted to say that at first. So if it didn't come straight away, I still had a bit more eating to do. And yeah, I worked the steps in 2020, the Big Book Awakening Way, and I worked them again in 2022 with the OA workbook. And then I'm working through again now in the Big Book Way. Yeah, and I think when I first came to OA, I really thought my problem was the food and everything else. Other than that, I was kind of a normal person and I was quite a nice person. And yes, I think, yeah, if I'd been the kind of person that had read forwards, I would have read in that very first paragraph that actually it's an illness of body and mind, and that the alcoholic or the foodaholic is a really sick person. But yeah, I didn't realize that straight away, and it took me a little while to really realize that I did have a problem that was one of like how to live life, not just a food thing. But just to sort of qualify and take my seat in terms of food, yeah, my first memory of turning to, it was often sugar, was my first memory is age 5, climbing up on the kitchen counter to steal the little sugary cake decorations from the cake decoration box on the shelf. And I would always want to eat more. I'd always want the sweet things more. And then things really kicked off when I was a teenager. And that's my first memory of really feeling, in particular, this relationship with my body that just didn't feel right, and wanting to control, to be acceptable in the world, and more specifically to be loved. Yeah, so I think there's just been this relationship between food and love, a very close relationship between food and love since then. Yeah, so since that age, I actually have been caught, or was caught, in spending a lot of time. I was going to say trying to eat like a normal person, but actually I don't think that's what I was doing. What I was wanting was I wanted to be able to eat as much as I could and still be thin. I think that was the sort of the fantasy. Yeah, that was the fantasy. I overate in private, like many of us do. So to my friends, I appeared like a normal eater, and then I'd eat a lot once I got home. And I sort of managed to then, after my, a lot of time as a teenager, tried making myself sick a little, but didn't use it loads. And then alcohol, smoking, and that sort of thing sort of took over in my 20s. So it was really more in my 30s that, when I stopped drinking alcohol, that the food really came back in as a huge thing. And it did take me to quite a dark place. And that's what brought me into the room. So the dark place was really where that was the most fun thing that I could think of, or the only real thing that was bringing me joy was the food. And I was going to the shop, buying food for binges, coming home. And I was living in a flat on my own at the time, so it was quite lonely in that regard as well. So I had the space just to binge eat, and then I would make myself sick, and that cycle. I didn't do it every day at that time, but I would perhaps do it 2 or 3 times in a day, and then I was very much with that horrible feeling of swearing off it and then doing the same thing again and just being completely baffled by that. Anyway, I won't talk too much more about that because I know we all know that place. But I guess, but it was just interesting that when I came into the rooms, I didn't get it straight away. And I think I still retained for a long time the conviction that I could do it, and that I perhaps wasn't as sick as everyone else, and that I would be able to do it on my own. The higher power connection, I think, I did come in with a faith, but I think I didn't know how to invite God or higher power into my relationship with food. I think I kept it a little bit separate and thinking that I could do it. One of the key things that did actually help me was having a way to root and ground my food in higher power. So that for me did look like having a certain structure, and this came in about 2021, 22, when I was doing the steps with the sponsor who took me through the OA workbook way. And I'm very grateful to her because actually, I was beginning to get this relationship with higher power, but for some reason it wasn't quite enough. And the structure that my sponsor at that time helped me put in place was emailing my plan of food the night before and then taking photographs of my food during the day. And I did that for a long time. I did that for over a year, and I'm really grateful to her. It gave me a practical way to hand over and surrender to God that food, and then to sort of not be involved in it. That's still an area where sometimes I can take my power back. I haven't binged and purged for a couple of years now, but the place where my I can sort of take it back still is that little thought after a meal of like, oh, I'll just have a bit more, or I'll have a little something. So that's definitely still my place. I'm very grateful to that sponsor who helped me put that structure in. But the other gift was definitely the gift of desperation. I think when I began to see my complete powerlessness, and also that it wasn't just this physical allergy. Like I think I did get to a point where I knew once I started, I couldn't stop. That was fairly obvious, and I sort of understood that bit. I understood the physical allergy. I think the bit that was baffling to me was this mental obsession of like, why do I still go back to that? And I think I just had such a strong will that every other part of my life I could handle it and I could do it, and self-will had got me there. And I hadn't been brought up with a faith, so I wasn't used to living in that way. But this absolute gift of desperation, the conviction that I was the real deal, I was the real compulsive overeater. And just seeing that mental obsession. And I think I always, like in films when they have the mental obsession as, oh my goodness, I'm going to pick up. Like, I think I thought it was that for a while, but of course, I think now my understanding of the mental obsession is very much this obsession that I will someday eat like a normal person. I think that was quite a game changer. Of like, oh, that's what my obsession is. like this obsession of being
5-minute
normal.
warning.
Thank you. Yes, so the gift of desperation, the mental obsession, and then very grateful, especially this time round, actually doing the steps. Like I'm amazed by the steps for, it just seems never ending, like the new layers and the new depths that it's taken me to. So yes, I guess the realizations this time of just how much I have been actually running on fear. I think I couldn't sort of see it all in one go. But yeah, having enough power coming in, enough kindness from higher power to be able to see the places where I actually have been very selfish, self-seeking, dishonest, and afraid. And how I will do almost anything to control the way people think about me so that they'll like me and they'll love me. And when the food's taken away, those are the problems that are still there. So even for example, for this meeting, like, I did have the thought, oh, I'll come to lots of meetings and then I'll hear how people do the shares and then I'll be able to do the perfect share. I definitely had that thought of like, I'll do all the research, so I'll control it. And of course, I didn't have time to do that, and instead I just have to pray to higher power to send me the right words and hope that something will be of use. A big resentment that I had this time round was towards my boss and towards other female authority figures, and a lot of it is around they're not giving me enough praise, validation, attention. For my boss in particular, it was that she wasn't looking, she doesn't look at me in the right way, she doesn't smile, she doesn't nod, and doesn't give me that kind of sense that I'm okay. So yeah, I have gained a lot from seeing just how much I'm still trying to control others, control what they think of me. And of course it does, all of that resentment comes from this there is a softer, quieter place of like, oh yeah, because there was a time in my past when I didn't receive that love and attention, and that's when I turned to food. So there's this sort of mistake in the programming that happened a long time ago, and I've just been living that out. And I'm amazed, at step 4 at how. I've done a lot of therapy as well. I've done 3 years of therapy. I have a meditation practice. So it definitely all helps and supports this going deeper, this connection with higher power. But there's something about step 4 that, like nothing else, I feel really digs deep and digs out the roots of where the sort of the messaging, the beliefs that I'm still holding on to, and just seeing how that affects the whole of my life, and led to a hopeless state of body and mind. So to now, thanks to step 4, 5, I'm sort of at the moment living a kind of 6, 7. Done a little bit of I've done a couple of amends, going to be doing some more. But yeah, I'd say that those realizations were one of the things that have taken me closer to higher power this time round, and sort of opened up that gateway to relying on God rather than relying on what other people think of me or relying on food. And it brings a lot of freedom just to be able, I think, when they say, oh, you'll be given access to a life beyond your wildest dreams. So I think, to some people, perhaps I'm probably not living a hugely exciting life, but to be able to walk around in my life and not be dependent upon what others think of me, I guess that's the freedom, that's the life beyond my wildest dreams, and to not be reliant upon food. And I'm just praying to remember those things that do help me stay in contact. So each time I do call someone else, each time I do a bit of step work, give service, each time I take someone through the steps or give a chair, I do now, like, I'm beginning to tune in more and more to that feeling of freedom and that I can tune into the thoughts from
That's
higher
time.
power rather than my own thoughts, which don't lead me anywhere great. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, and yeah, look forward to hearing your shares. Thank you.